You know that fantasy, right? A world with no bugs, no buzzing mosquitoes in your ear, no wasps at your barbecue, no flies anywhere. Sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? Well, what if I told you that fantasy would actually be a global nightmare? Let's get into it. See, here's the thing. When you start to look at this idea through the eyes of a scientist, that pleasant little daydream, it turns dark fast. The real question isn't whether it'd be nice, but whether it would be a paradise or a complete and total catastrophe for life on Earth. So let's just put that side by side for a second. On one hand, you've got the fantasy. No more mosquitoes, no more stings, perfectly clean picnic blankets. Awesome. But the ecological reality? We are talking about the global food system just collapsing, a mass extinction event, and even accelerating climate change. Yeah, it gets serious. Okay, to really get why losing insects is such a big deal, you have to wrap your head around just how many of them there are. They're not just some small part of the animal kingdom. They make up about 80% of all known animal species. They're the absolute foundation of almost every ecosystem on land. So let's say they all just poof, vanish tomorrow. What happens first? What's the first giant domino to fall? Well, it would be fast and it would be completely devastating. The Great Pollination Collapse. So 75%. That number is huge. It's the key to this whole crisis, really. That's the percentage of the world's flowering plants that depend on animals for pollination. And guess who the main pollinators are? Overwhelmingly, it's insects. And the speed? Well, the speed at which everything would fall apart is just terrifying. I mean, within a few weeks, pollination just stops. A few months after that, fruit and vegetable harvests fail all over the world. And in the years that follow, we see widespread plant extinctions because they just can't reproduce anymore. The entire green architecture of our planet would start to crumble. So what does that actually mean for, your dinner plate? We are talking about everyday foods just disappearing. Apples, almonds, blueberries, squash. The list of crops that need insects to grow is massive. Whole industries, gone, almost overnight. And believe it or not, the plants dying off, that's just the first act. The next catastrophic phase is the starvation of pretty much every animal that depends on those plants, or on the insects themselves. Now, to get what happens next, we need to talk about this idea called a trophic cascade. Usually that's when you take out a top predator and you see the effects ripple down the food chain. But what we're talking about here is way more extreme. We're pulling out the foundation from the very bottom. The whole thing collapses, but it collapses from the bottom up. It's like a row of dominoes, right? And it falls in this really specific order. First, the insects vanish. Second, the plants that need them die. Then, all the creatures that ate insects, birds, bats, frogs, you name it, they start to starve. And finally, the predators that eat those animals start to decline. It is a chain reaction of pure extinction. Let's just look at birds for a second. About 60% of all bird species rely heavily on insects for food. This is especially true when they're raising their young, because the chicks need all that protein to grow. Without insects, well, you can imagine, bird populations would absolutely plummet. Okay, so pollination is gone, food webs are collapsing, but the disaster goes even deeper. It goes to the systems that are less visible but just as critical. We're talking about the very foundation of the planet's life support. Insects are basically the planet's cleanup crew. They do all this hidden, thankless work that keeps everything running. They break down dead wood, fallen leaves, animal carcasses, all of it. They recycle all those crucial nutrients right back into the ecosystem. All that work they do, it leads to healthy soil, full of air from their tunnels, and rich with nutrients. But without them, you get hard, compacted, stagnant soil. It's stripped of things like nitrogen and phosphorus. The very ground we walk on would become barren and dead. And of course, all of this massive ecological collapse, it lands right on our doorstep. It becomes a crisis that compounds, making everything worse for us. I know what you're thinking. Okay, but come on, there's gotta be one silver lining, right? No more mosquitoes means no more malaria. No more ticks means no more Lyme disease. A world without those diseases, that sounds pretty good. But not so fast. The chaos in the ecosystem would create all new and maybe even worse dangers. Without insect predators, rodent populations could explode, bringing diseases like hantavirus and the plague right along with them. and all those animal carcasses would rot way slower, becoming perfect breeding grounds for new pathogens. We'd just be trading one set of problems for another. And it doesn't stop there. The fallout would hit our industries and even our tech in ways you probably never even thought about. We'd lose silk for clothes, honey and beeswax for food and cosmetics, even something called shellac, which is used in everything from food coatings to electronics. Oh, and good luck with genetics research without the trusty fruit fly. So could we just pay our way out of this? What's the price tag? Well, just to try and replace the pollination that insects do for free would cost hundreds of billions of dollars every single year. And honestly, no amount of money or tech could ever truly do what they do. But, beyond all the chaos, the biology, the economics, there's something else we'd lose. The world would become silent. That soundtrack of summer, the buzzing of bees, the chirping of crickets, it would just be gone. It'd be a poorer, emptier world. We lose a part of our connection to nature itself. So when you pull all of this together, you're left with this really powerful, kind of mind-blowing conclusion that the smallest creatures on our planet are in fact the ones that matter the most. This quote from the research really just nails it. The fate of insects is therefore inseparable from the fate of humanity. Our survival and their survival, they're the exact same thing. The main takeaway here is that insects aren't just buzzing around in the background of our lives. They aren't an afterthought. They are the foundational architects of our world. They're the engineers, the janitors, the farmers that make all of this life on Earth possible. And that leaves us with one last, really critical question. This whole disaster scenario, it's not just a scary story, it's a warning. Right now, today, insect populations are already dropping around the world because of things we're doing. So the real question is, are we listening?